Últimamente, Jasmine Crockett no ha parado de sacar de quicios a Donald Trump. Y esto lo ha llevado un paso más allá, haciendo que Donald Trump estalle de furia. Y Jasmine Crockett consiguió esto utilizando a Melania Trump para referirse al tema de las deportaciones ilegales de Donald Trump. Todos sabíamos que esto molestaba a Donald Trump, pero nadie se imaginaba que iba a ir tan lejos como para que él haga una publicación en Truth Social. Y vamos a hablar de todo esto, de cómo Jasmine Crockett habló de Melania Trump, de cómo Donald Trump se enojó, de cómo todo este tema de las deportaciones ilegales afecta directamente a Donald Trump, pero con el tema que quiero empezar es de Jasmine Crockett refiriéndose a Melania Trump. Así que miren el clip, por favor.
It's interesting that we're being accused of wanting all kinds of criminals to be on the streets, or that we don't believe that people should show up to their meetings and appointments. Last time I checked, there's a lot of people that are actually being grabbed as they are going in for their appointments. In fact, we know that one of the candidates that was recently running in this mayoral, he ended up being arrested because he decided that he was actually going to escort people that are actually showing up to their meetings. Or we know that the Pope, yes, the Pope himself decided that the church may need to have people that are going to escort people as they're going into their meetings. Because the reality is that what they are claiming what they want to do versus what they're actually doing, the actions don't match up. And while we are supposed to be talking about visas, somehow we continue to cherry pick and talk about one criminal act and another criminal act. And it is so very interesting to me that, yes, we will say people are xenophobic, because when you start to decide that just because somebody came from another country, they are automatically some kind of criminal, that does sound kind of xenophobic to me, because you are using a paintbrush to paint an entire group of people where the vast majority of them are coming here because they are actually seeking a better life. But let me get to what this hearing is supposed to be about. The idea that Trump and my Republican colleagues want to restore integrity and security in the visa process is actually a joke. Let me be clear. Integrity is not snatching lawful visa holders off the streets and throwing them into unmarked vans. Integrity is not revoking visas based on social media posts that hurt somebody's little feelings because kids decide that they want to go after Trump or this administration. We have a thing called free speech in this country. And since we're talking about integrity, I'm confused as to why my Republican colleagues aren't talking about the lack of integrity when it comes to the president's family's visas. Let me remind y'all that Melania, the first lady, a model, and when I say model, I'm not talking about Tyra Banks, Cindy Crawford, or Naomi Campbell level, applied for and was given an EB1 visa. And what that stands for is an Einstein visa. Now, y'all that don't know, let me tell you how you receive an Einstein visa. You're supposed to have some sort of significant achievement, like being awarded a Nobel Peace Prize or a Pulitzer, being an Olympic medalist, or having other sustained extraordinary abilities and success in sciences, arts, education, business, or athletics. Last time I checked, the First Lady had none of those accolades under her belt. It doesn't take an Einstein to see that the math ain't mathin' here. Nevertheless, what Republicans are doing with this reconciliation process, the travel bans and revoking visas, jeopardizes our national security. It threatens our communities, our higher education, and our economy. Visas like the largely vetted J visas for higher education and M visas for trade, training, attract the next innovators, medical providers, researchers, and educators that we need to build on American success. I'm not gonna mess up your name, so I'm not doing that. But I'm with you, okay? In your experience, do individuals on J or M visas typically improve or impair our economy?
They generally improve the economy, and I can give a brief example. My wife is a very successful woman. She makes a ton of money, which I'm grateful for. And the reason why we're able to do that while having 3 children is because of the au pair visa, somebody who is here on a J. Okay. Who is here and able to supply this for us. But I also want to defend Melania real quick. Not everybody could marry Donald Trump, and I think that's quite an achievement. So I think she deserves credit for that. Nobody up here could have done it.
You sure right, I couldn't do it. But anyway, in fact, J visa holders contribute $43.8 billion to the U.S. economy and support more than 300,000 jobs. And make no mistake, immigrants improve the health of U.S. citizens too, despite the fact we already have a doctor shortage. Trump's reckless travel ban and visa overhaul are exacerbating this crisis by impairing hundreds of hospitals with foreign-trained doctors set to do their residencies here in the United States, meaning fewer people will get the help they need and more people will die. Now, let me remind you that Republicans are trying to gut Medicaid. Roughly 4.5 million people receive caregiver services through Medicaid, and most of these folks are in red states. And wouldn't you know that in 2023, Kaiser Family Foundation estimated that almost 30% of long-term care providers or home caretakers were immigrants. It's like Republicans want Americans to suffer. Now, Republicans say visas make us less secure, but let's talk about how visas given to victims of crimes like rape, murder, human trafficking, torture, abduction, kidnapping, to help law enforcement with their investigation or prosecutions of these crimes. These folks are risking their own security for broader safety of Americans and our communities.
Me encanta lo que hizo Jasmine Crockett al mencionar a Melania Trump y al hacer enfurecer tanto a Donald Trump, ya que utiliza un argumento muy bueno refiriéndose a Melania Trump para poder hablar, o mejor dicho, referirse a las deportaciones ilegales que ha creado toda la administración de Donald Trump. Es simplemente una obra maestra, pero como les dije, Donald no estaba nada contento con esto, a tal punto que creó una publicación en Truth Social, ya saben, la red social personal de Donald Trump. Aunque de hecho últimamente Donald Trump ha estado tan enojado que cualquier cosa que lo hace enojar un poquito más la publica en Truth Social. Miren por ejemplo esta publicación. Donald Trump escribió en Truth Social: tengo una idea para los demócratas, para volver a ponerlos en el juego después de años de haber sido dejados al margen, incluyendo una de las mayores derrotas de la historia, la elección presidencial del 2024. Los demócratas deberían denominar a la candidata de más bajo coeficiente intelectual, Jasmine Crockett, como presidenta, y Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez debería de estar en la vicepresidencia, y 3 miembros de alto nivel del gabinete, sumando a nuestro futuro alcalde comunista de la ciudad de Nueva York, Zohran Mamdani. Nuestro país realmente está arruinado. Bueno, tener de presidenta a Jasmine Crockett, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez dentro de la Casa Blanca no suena nada mal. Pero bueno, Donald Trump debería dejar de meterse en otros partidos y enfocarse en cómo su partido republicano lo está detestando. Enfocarse en cómo su administración está yendo por los suelos. Y enfocarse en que todas las personas que antes lo apoyaban ahora le dan la espalda. Me encanta ver todo lo que está pasando. Me encanta ver que la gente por fin se quitó la venda de los ojos y se está dando cuenta de que Donald Trump no es para nada lo que él prometía hacer. No es un presidente antibombas, no es un presidente que va a conseguir un mejor estilo de vida para nadie. Es simplemente un hombre que quiere llenarse los bolsillos y llenar su ego. Así que me encanta lo que hizo Zohran Mamdani, un miembro de la Asamblea de Nueva York, logrando nuevamente sacar de sus casillas a Donald Trump. Porque Zohran Mamdani, por si no lo conoces, es un gran hombre, un hombre que le gusta hacer las cosas bien y pensar en los demás, cosa que Donald Trump no hace para nada. Y Zohran Mamdani ha logrado mejorar el transporte y ha logrado que la vida infantil de los menores sea mucho más segura y saludable. Actualmente el gobierno de Donald Trump es un pésimo chiste. Jasmine Crockett continuó su denuncia en el Congreso hablando, o mejor dicho, criticando el plan de deportación ilegal de la administración de Donald Trump. Y esto lo hizo con una crítica directa al ICE. Miren el clip, por favor.
So it's good for us to be having the first immigration hearing in memory, not on enforcement tactics at the border or in our communities, but instead about visas. Alas, the president's record on visas is riddled with the same bursts of extremism and dogmatism and fanaticism that have made his enforcement measures so unpopular. He and his administration have tortured our laws and trampled our Constitution to kick out permanent resident green card holders and students and target universities who voice opinions that he disapproves of. As part of its effort to undertake a hostile takeover of America's colleges and universities, the administration interrupted interviews for student and exchange visitor visas. The result, about 15% of foreign doctors slated to begin their work at American teaching hospitals around the country were unable to get their visas in time to start the medical year next month, all at a time when we have a serious doctor shortage in the country that threatens access to care. And the monstrous reconciliation bill threatens to slash Medicaid funding on which rural hospitals rely. The administration has also recently implemented its xenophobic travel ban to unilaterally ban entrance to the country for all nationals of 19 different countries, with minor exceptions. Categorically denying visas to nationals of these countries does not make us safer or freer or more prosperous. It cements us in the eyes of the world as a vindictive, isolationist, and increasingly undependable and authoritarian country. The travel ban will likely have significant economic consequences by restricting travel and migration from the targeted nations. In 2022, at least 298,000 non-citizens from countries affected by the new travel ban arrived in the U.S. Most of them came to the U.S. temporarily, spending money as tourists or as students, fueling our economy. The following year, households with nationals from the targeted countries collectively earned $3.2 billion in income, paid $715 million in federal, state, and local taxes, and held $2.5 billion in spending power. Donald Trump also paused the refugee program, claiming the entry of these thoroughly vetted and re-vetted individuals would be detrimental to the United States. But then he allowed white Afrikaners to apply via a Google form and to undergo an expedited process to come to the U.S. as refugees. And it should shock no one to learn that after they arrived, reporters were able to dig up numerous anti-Semitic posts from the refugees. One of them had never been subjected, apparently, to the new anti-Semitism screen being used for other visa candidates. The title of this hearing is Restoring Integrity and Security to the Visa Process. How does any of this restore integrity or security? These random pauses, arbitrary bans, ad hoc detentions do nothing to improve security or integrity in our process. President Trump has turned our visa system into a terrain of caprice and selective punishment he can wield against his chosen political enemies and use to demonize and scapegoat immigrants, including visa recipients. This war on immigrants is designed to distract us from the fact that they're trying to cut 14 million Americans off of Medicaid, destroying small businesses with chaotic and unlawful tariff policies, gutting federal agencies and programs charged with protecting Americans against scams and frauds, and using the pardon power to transfer more than $1 billion from the victims of crime to the perpetrators of crime. Sometimes the president's had his lucid moments on immigration. During his first term, while saying he wanted to build a big, beautiful wall, he said the wall would have a big, very beautiful door, signifying his support for legal immigration. In brief, lucid moments like these, I try to find hope that we can work together across the aisle to focus on a secure border, the removal of immigrants convicted of serious crimes and public safety threats, a pathway to citizenship for the law-abiding, tax-paying, undocumented immigrants who Trump recently called very good long-time workers, and a modernized immigration system that will make it easier to come here lawfully while protecting American workers. We've come very close to doing this in the past. We can do it again. Tom Paine, who arrived in the country in 1774, fell in love with America when he got here. He said, this land will become an asylum to humanity. Not an insane asylum, mind you, but a place of refuge for people seeking freedom from religious and political and economic persecution and discrimination from all over the world. So let's live up to the original vision of the founders. This is a nation made up of immigrants and the descendants of people who were enslaved and of the original Native Americans. But this is a land of immigration, a land of immigrants, and a land of laws. We can make it all fit together, and I hope we can work together on a bipartisan basis to make that happen.
Es un gran día para denunciar lo terrible que es la administración de Donald Trump. Y aún mejor con dos de nuestras personas favoritas, Jamie Raskin y Jasmine Crockett. Realmente no puedo pedir más. Bueno, sí puedo pedir algo. Me encantaría que me pongas en los comentarios qué te pareció este video, si te pareció importante, si te parece no tan importante, y más que todo si lo llegas a entender. Está de más decirlo, pero si te gusta el contenido de política estadounidense, te va a encantar suscribirte al canal, ya que subo videos todos los días. Mi nombre es José Alvarado, soy economista y estoy comprometido a informarte diariamente. Nos vemos en el siguiente video. Adiós.